is good, good people? You are now listening to another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. I am your humble narrator, Danny Foxworth, and it's great to be back on with you. Appreciate y'all checking out the Charlie Maverick episode. That was a lot of fun. Got to talk barbecue and how we got into podcasting and things of that nature. And this episode, just going to give you all just a brief synopsis of what took during these last couple weekends, because they were pretty event filled and pretty fun filled. So I'll start back on 2 Saturdays ago. 2 Saturdays ago, I actually celebrated my pop's 74th birthday. Big shout out to my dad. Love that guy, man. I tell you, we talk pretty much every day, and it's always a beautiful thing to see him still remaining active even at his age. And seeing him and mom go for their walks every morning and always finding stuff to do around the house, because they say the Rolling Stone gathers no moss, and he's really laid the blueprint on how to really age gracefully. And I'm just forever indebted to him and all the things that he's done for me. So Dad, shout out to you. Happy 74 years, man. And then also that same day, I took a trip up to Columbia because the good folks at the Hilltop Glove podcast did a series of episodes that particular day, and they did it before a live audience. And every time they do an event, I always pull up to support them. And lo and behold, I ended up having to guest host one of the episodes because they had somebody lined up to help them with the guest host, but they called out, so they weren't able to make it for some reason. And so they were like, look, we may need you to help us with the guest hosting episode. We got 2 episodes left, so just pick which one you want to do. Now, I was looking at the guests they had lined up, and I'm like, okay, I want to do this one. Shout out to Tamaya Allen. Her and myself, we co-hosted the episode, and we talked to a lady by the name of Miss Shannon Ivy, and she has such an incredible story. And this was actually my first time meeting her. I wasn't aware of her prior to coming to the event, but I learned so much from her, and she's just doing so many great things in the community. And I got to give a big shout out to her. And y'all be on the lookout for that one. Should come out, I say probably in about 3 or 4 weeks. And whenever the episode drops, I'll let y'all know. I'll post it and point everybody in the direction of the podcast so you can listen and watch. So again, shout out to the Hilltop Glove podcast. Thank y'all for inviting me to y'all's recording sessions, and thank you for allowing me to be a guest. That was a lot of fun. And this past Tuesday, my friend Liz and I, if you're not familiar, we have a podcast called Growing Up Lowcountry with Liz and Danny, and we had a guest. Shout out to Tamisha Jackson. That episode was so much fun to do. She reached back about a couple months ago, and I made a post on Facebook about one of our episodes, and she was like, I want to be a guest on the pod. I'm like, all right, cool, we'll set it up. And so sure enough, we had the episode set up for this month, and she showed up, and we recorded, and we reminisced, and we had a lot of fun with that one. And just a little inside baseball, after we finished recording Growing Up Lowcountry, I'll usually sit down with Liz and her family. We have dinner, and Tamisha joined us. But unbeknownst to us, Liz had another special guest lined up to come through after we finished eating. And sure enough, it was, to my surprise, it was Miss Durand and her husband, which they were teachers at our high school. She didn't teach me, but she taught Tamisha cheerleading, and her and Liz live in the same neighborhood. So if Liz was like, she sent out the bat signal, and sure enough, they showed up. And I literally had not seen her and her husband since high school. So it's been damn near 20 years since the last time I seen her. And it was just so great catching up with them. My heart was so full whenever I left from there. I mean, my heart and my stomach. So shout out to Liz. You old trickster, I got to give you your props. That was an extremely pleasant surprise. And then this past Saturday, South Carolina State had their homecoming. They played Savannah State. And as always, whenever I go to South Carolina State for their homecoming, I always got to link up with the good brother 12 Kyle. He's one of my biggest podcast influences, and he's been on the podcast several times, and I've been on this podcast. And the last time we met up was actually when I was in Atlanta about a month and a half ago, when we met up at the Waffle House. He lives in Atlanta. He's actually from Florence, South Carolina, but he's been living in Atlanta for 20 plus years now. And so since I was back in the area, I was like, let's link up. And so per usual, we always chop it up. And it's always a good time hanging out with my homie. And we went and watched the game, and they ended up beating Savannah State. And about the third quarter, that's normally when I leave the game just so I can beat traffic to head back home. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a thoughts and prayers to the victims of there was a shooting actually at that homecoming later that night at a dormitory. So RIP to the young lady that lost her life, and prayers up to the entire South Carolina State family. But still, I had a blast out there. And then of course the Marching 101 did their thing, and then 803 Fresh, Mr. Boots on the Ground himself, was the grand marshal of the parade, and he also performed at halftime with the band. But unfortunately, his mic didn't work. And so they gave him another mic, and that one didn't work either. But he showed up, and they performed Boots on the Ground, and it was dope. Yeah, ate good at the tailgating, man. I got no complaints. And so while I was enjoying myself at homecoming, my doggone Tar Heels shit the bed once again at the hands of the Clemson Tigers. Now, I've been a fan of UNC football since 1992. And even when they announced that they signed Bill Belichick, truthfully, I wasn't thrilled about it. You get rid of a 73-year-old Mac Brown and replace him with a 72-year-old Bill Belichick. And you saw his track record with the Patriots after Tom Brady left. It plummeted fast. Yeah, he's got rings, but I mean, he was looking a little funny in the light after Brady left and went to Tampa and got a Super Bowl ring with the Buccaneers. And the Patriots just fell off the face of the earth. And so they decided to bring him to UNC, and everybody was all in hysterics and just anxious to see how the Belichick era was going to be. And so far, it has been an absolutely abject failure, just like I anticipated. I tell you, first game of the year was against TCU. All eyes on Chapel Hill. It was a Monday night game. Everybody's pulling up. You had Julius Peppers, Mia Hamm, Michael Jordan, Roy Williams. They were all in attendance. Just to see them flat out lay an egg and lose to TCU 48-14. It was a mess. And the only two games they won were the two games after that. They beat UNC Charlotte and Richmond. I mean, they're 1AA teams. I mean, they're not world beaters. And then after that, they proceed to go to Central Florida and lose 34-9. And this same Central Florida team that just beat the brakes off of UNC proceeds to lose to Kansas and Kansas State after that win. It's not a good sign. And then this past Saturday, after coming fresh off a bye week, so they had a week to prepare for this matchup. Actually, no, they had 2 weeks to prepare for this matchup. And they ended up losing 38-10. The fans were just filing out of the stadium by the second quarter. Halftime, they were down 35-3. And I got to say, out of all my years of being a UNC football fan, this is, and I say this without hyperbole, this is the least talented UNC football team I have ever seen in my life. It is so bad. You give $2 million in NIL money to Gio Lopez, who came in from South Alabama. And I was rooting for the kid because he's left-handed, and I got a soft spot for the left-handed quarterbacks, but he's not worth his weight in salt. I'm telling you, he's so bad. And then his replacement really ain't much better. Max Johnson, really the only thing he's got good going for him is the fact that he's 6'5". And that's pretty much it. I mean, they made Cade Klubnik look like a Heisman frontrunner. He was like 21-25, and he's been struggling this year. But you couldn't see any signs of that. 21-25 and threw 4 touchdowns. And yeah, and they got another bye week after this, and then they play California. And yeah, I'm not wasting my time watching them. I got better things to do. I tell you, it's just went from bad to worse. But what can I do? But on the flip side of that, on Sunday, the Carolina Panthers actually won a game. Bryce Young, he was Bryce Young. He'll have some flashes and then he'll make some bad throws. But I got to give a shout out to one Rico Dowdle, who just absolutely was a just filled in for Chuba Hubbard, who was out with a calf injury. And Rico Dowdle had 21 carries for 206 yards. That man had just a day for the ages. I think that's the second most rushing yards ever for a Panther in a game. I think it was right behind D'Angelo Williams. So shout out to Rico Dowdle. Panthers got the win against the Miami Dolphins. I mean, it's still hard for me to get my hopes up about this team. But you know what? I got to celebrate the wins whenever they get them because they're few and far between. So now this makes David Tepper's record, I believe, 37. No, it's 38 and 83 now since he's bought the team in 2018. Yeah, that was a W for the good guys. And also that same day, the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is my favorite team, the defending world champion Oklahoma City Thunder, faced off against the Charlotte Hornets in the preseason game at the North Charleston Coliseum. So that was really cool to be able to see my squad like not even 30 minutes from the house. Liz actually had an extra ticket. So I sat with her and the family, and it was a real good time. Real good time. The starters, they pretty much benched like 80% of the players on the Thunder's roster, but the players that they did trot out there, I was extremely impressed with. Ousmane Dieng balled out, and shout out to Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, Jay Will. He did his thing, and Aaron Wiggins did his thing, and they ended up, just dog walking the Hornets, even with the Hornets having all of their players available. So that was a good sign, and I saw some great defensive efforts from the Thunder, and I'm ready for the season. I'm ready for the season to start. And also in basketball, my beloved Las Vegas Aces, at the time of this recording, have a 2-0 lead over the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA Finals. So I'm telling you what, it's really been a season of winning over here for your boy. Between the Thunder and the Aces, and the Rangers got their title back in 2023. And this could possibly be the Aces' third world title in the last 4 years. So shout out to them. And lastly, Liz and I are actually lined up to be guests on a podcast that I was a guest on previously. Shout out to my homie Terrence Elmore, the Brown Sugar podcast. He reached out to Liz and I, so we're going to be a guest on there within the next week. So y'all keep your eyes peeled for that. And I think I'm going to make another return as a solo guest on the Brown Sugar podcast as well. So y'all be on the lookout for both of those episodes. So again, whenever he puts those episodes out, I will link everything so y'all can tune in. And yeah, shout out to Terrence for inviting Liz and I to be guests on. It's really cool seeing them with this podcast thing is taking Liz and I, and it's just been an extremely enjoyable experience. And that's going to do it for this episode since we last spoke with Danny Foxworth. So tell a friend about the podcast. Make sure you like, download, and subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can find me at Danny Foxworth 843. There you can find videos of every episode of this podcast, as well as my baseball podcast, At the Plate with Danny Foxworth, Growing Up Lowcountry with Liz and Danny, and my Candle podcast, A Wicked Good Time with Danny Foxworth. And until next time, y'all be good. Peace.